Good to have Caleb in there on the live, and that way everybody knows there are some other people that actually attend this church. So it's good. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Grace Christian Fellowship. Glad to have you here.
Yep.
There you go. One good.
Yep.
Yahoo! Yeah. There we go. Let's see. It's Independence Day tomorrow. Yay!
Yay.
Thank you, Lord, for allowing us to make some decisions like that. Yeah, shoot off fireworks. Wednesday prayer, and then of course family camp is next weekend. So again, if you're not camping, that's fine. You can always come out and visit. Note that church service will be at 11 a.m. and if you need directions, I can give them to you. So that, and I will probably come some point in the week and put it on the door to let you know. There is an address for where we're at, so you can just Google map it. Tracy.
So we do have the bathroom. If some people can bring some extra toilet paper and paper towels.
Yes. So yeah, out there we have like 2 porta potties and a regular bathroom. But part of the deal of what's that?
The hiking bathroom.
Yeah, the what kind of bathroom?
You have to hike to it.
The hike to it, yes. The small. It's a short hike. Here.
You got to plan for this.
Part of the deal of using that bathroom is that we make sure we leave it as we found it and take really good care of it. And so there you go. So yes, definitely bring some extra supplies so that we can replenish their supplies there. Breakfast and dinners are provided. So there you go. Just everyone, you're on your own for lunch and snacks. And there you go. Any questions, let me know. Like I said, yes.
Just a tip for those who didn't attend family camp before, lunch you probably won't need.
Yeah.
Go heavier on the snacks, because with dinner and with the breakfasts, they're pretty big. So last year, like nobody ate lunches.
Yeah.
Just a little tip.
Yes. Snacking is probably the best way to go. And then again, if you need to have directions, I'll get that to you, and Google Maps will get you right there. And so there you go. Any other stuff happening that we need to know about? No? All right. Well, let's pray and get ready to go into God's Word. Father God, we just thank you for this morning. We thank you for your Word. We especially thank you for your creation account, how it's put together. Just the amazing organization, the facts, how it's put together, how you tell us that is just so amazing, Lord. And I just pray now this morning, Lord, that you would just touch our hearts with who you are as the Creator God. Help us to understand that. Help us to see your hand. Because your hand that created the world is your hand that's also moving in our lives. I just pray, Father, that we would see that today. And I just ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. You might have seen this title last week. Fins and Feathers. Yeah. It's like deja vu. So that seemed like I was here last time. So, of course, now we're going to hit the Genesis account of the 5th day. And, he's been going through all the other different things, and now we're going to come to where the father makes fish, or more, really. Fins and feathers, but it's even more descriptive than that. And birds. And so that's kind of interesting where the 2 things, and some of the things that God mentions specifically in this account. So many of us have heard, the whole idea that whales and stuff like that were actually evolved from land mammals that had moved back into the ocean, allegedly. So God's got something to say about that. And then often nowadays it's especially fashionable to like put feathers on almost every dinosaur they make. And just like, and that again is fashionable. That's what it is. It's only fashionable because they want people to believe that dinosaurs just started growing feathers. And that's not true. You know, just like it's all fantasy, and God has something to say about that. And then this morning we're going to talk briefly and think about, you know, when you talk about that we live, that we're alive, that life exists. But have you ever thought about what it takes to live? All the things that keep you alive, that God has made. And that's something we'll chat briefly about today too. So let's read the 5th day, Genesis chapter 1, verses 20 through 23. And God said, "Let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures. Let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the heavens." So God created the great sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning, the 5th day. So now God, he'd already made plants. So he had some living organisms that had been produced already. But now he's producing something else, and things that move. Things that have what we call the breath of life, if you will, in different forms, as we would see and understand. And so he had said, read verse 20 again, and God said, "Let the waters swarm with swarms of living creatures. Let the birds fly above the earth and across the expanse of heaven." So I love that the word swarm. And it's like swarm and swarm again. And the word can also mean wiggle. It's like, all I can picture when I see that is some episode of Fear Factor. You know, creatures, they always invite you. So it's like, okay, here you go. Are you brave enough to dive into this big box full of swarming creatures? And the answer would be no. You can keep those, yeah. It's great to see. You might pick up one, but no. Not going to get in there. But the whole thing is wiggling and moving around, and it's how they describe just things all swarming together. Is using this word to wiggle around. Just a very interesting term. And it's an interesting thought. Now, here you go. You guys all got your bottle of water in there, and I can see why. Because when you think like a droplet of seawater, just a droplet of seawater has, on average, 30,000 little creatures in it. Makes you thirsty, doesn't it? And I think because that's the seawater, and I don't know what kind of creature factors inside fresh water, but imagine that there's something there too that's there. When we think of these creatures, it's all of those creatures. All of these creatures put together. The living creatures, and now he called them living creatures. Now, creatures that have breath of life. We will see that this word is also used for the word soul. So in a sense, these things have something about them that like sets them apart from plants, if you will. They have this thing that's going on. And the idea, what is that? Because later we're going to see that man not only has this breath of life, but we're made in the image of God. So we have another distinction added to us. But for these creatures, and we're going to see also when we get to the 6th day, all these other animals going on, they have this breath of life. Part of it is that they make decisions. Even the littlest animal makes decisions, is moving around, is doing something, has motivations. God has given instincts and motivations and things to do, even down to the little bitty virus. It's been given instructions of what to do, how to live. But these things make decisions. They have to make decisions about where to get food, selection of a mate. We think of pack animals. It's who's in charge. Those are decisions that these animals, even the animals, make these decisions. And that's why, like, when you get trappers going after animals to trap them, they know that the animal's making the decision. They were relying on the decision to trap them. Now, are these moral decisions? No, not really. They can talk about like certain animals, and like especially with like you get the when animals attack kind of idea. The animal's not making a moral decision and going after people. It just says, man, people taste good. And then they decide that's what they're going to go do. We as people like, oh, this is bad, and then, this animal's evil. And the animal's like, what? It's like, you guys are just easy. I can chase you down way faster than anything, that gazelle. It's like, so there it is. And it's not a moral question, it's just a decision-making process that they go through, and that's what they do. Now, it's interesting that God started in the waters. So that, let the water swarm, the swarm of living creatures. We think of just fish, but there's more. Go ahead and hit that clicker. We got clicker, she's clicking. We got mollusks of all sorts of different kinds. So think about that. That's nautilus, jellyfish, plankton, if you will. We got cold-blooded fish. There's a nice little swarm of swift flock, School, thank you. School of fish. And then, of course, then we got the whales and dolphins that were out there too. I always love the jumping dolphins idea. That's one of my favorite things when I was out to sea, is being able to see the dolphins and the porpoises. Usually from behind the ship, they would the wake of the ship. That was sport for them. And it was just amazing to watch them just jump, just come out and jump. Crazy. But there we are, all these waters, those are the types of animals, and even the simplest of them, when you think of like the jellyfish or something like that, it's not so simple. Every animal is complex, very complex. Each one has its own system of what it needs to do to live in the water. And it's I like to say the word made. It's made to live in the water, totally. Of course, then we get to the dry land. We have the birds. We have different birds. So many different birds. There, you got your woodpecker, parrot, a little sparrow, owl, flamingo, and it looks like another woodpecker of some kind right there too. So we just got all these birds. But that's just the avian birds. We should also consider what everybody loves, and that would be other stuff like dragonflies, made to fly. Beetles, but this is, I was wondering when I was thinking about the beetle action there, the ladybug flying around. I was like, well, does that count for like when he made the land animals? I don't know, so forgive me if I went beyond that, but just cool. We got honeybees out there. I was going to put like, the murder hornets up there, but I was like, no. Then we got the moths, and I love the fact that the picture of this moth, you see somebody's hand behind it to show just how big that moth is. Just amazing. And that was, I think, Sarah, that was like 2 years ago now when we saw the butterfly and moth thing over in Victoria, I think. Yeah, just amazing. These different flying things. And every one of them are all made to fly. Everything already. You couldn't just have a partially little bitty stub of a wing. It's like, oh look, it's growing a wing. Someday it'll fly. No, if it's only got a stub of a wing, it ain't flying. That is how everything's made. Like even the insect, the dragonfly, which is the inspiration for a helicopter. How it's controlled. To have a wing is one thing. You got to be able to control that baby. It's got every wing has got its own independent flaps and can control them around and all sorts of other stuff that goes along with that. It's just amazing the naiveness of scientists back in the day. Just thought, oh yeah, here it is, there's what it is, and this is simple. It could just come about. No, none of it's simple. It's all very, very complicated. And it was interesting to think about. Honorable mention was bats. I thought about flying creatures and bats, but I'm sorry, there's all the bat fans out here. Forgive me, but they're flying out there too, and every animal, both in sea and that environment. They were ready to go. Totally. I'm going to save that for when I talk about the birds again, because I'm going to talk about the birds. But God immediately talks about this sea creature. So he repeats himself again, which has been his pattern in Genesis. He says, this is what I'm going to do. Then he does it. And Genesis 1:21, the first part of it says, so God created the great sea creatures and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm according to their kind. And of course, when it talks about the great sea creatures, this is the word for whale. And so we got our whale here, Mr. Blue Whale, the biggest whale that we know of. But in all of this, I'm talking about the animals that we kind of know of. But really, I believe dinosaurs were there. So God created all the dinosaurs right at the same time and made it all happen. And He's got those going on. But this word for whale, and it's like, they use the word for whale, but it can also mean just sea creature. Large sea creatures. So you can think of the large dinosaur sea creatures that you could imagine, the Plesiosaurus and stuff like that, that's got the big long necks and the flippers on the side kind of idea. And so there it is. So the whole idea is to think about the whale. And I mentioned before that many of the scientists thought that some land mammal, and their favorite one is the elephant. The elephant moved and went back into the ocean at some point to start to become a whale again. There's so many things about that doesn't make sense. Especially once that first whale is like, okay, I got my big snorkel nose, let's just see how far I can go. You go this far and this far, oh, that's as far as I can go. Like I can't breathe anymore, and my nose is in the wrong spot, my lungs don't work, and my eyes don't work, and my ears don't work. We got some problems here, because see, that's when you think of a whale, what it has, and this is pretty general for whales. First we have to talk about their lung capacity. There's a picture of a whale, a life-size whale heart. Look how big that thing is. That's just ginormous. It's just like, I love that the little kids are able to crawl through it there, for the arteries are so big. And then the lung capacity there, it says 5,000 liters, 1,000 times lung capacity of an average human. If you did that in gallons, that's 1,320 gallons of air. Which allows it to, it can stay underwater for 2 hours at a time, down to depths of 6,500 feet. So more than a mile down, to just chill out down there and do what they do, whatever whales do when they're down there. But it's just like, that's just amazing. Now we talk about their ears. Let's talk about their ears. So their ears are designed to pick up waterborne sound, not airwave sound. And they can hear each other for a distance of 1,600 kilometers, which is, go ahead and click again, 994 miles. That's how far they can hear. Those kids are never going to get away with anything. Their mom's like, what did you say? 500 miles away, Mom, it doesn't count. But it's amazing. It's just like, but the elephant has big ears, but it can't do that. Then his eyes. His eyes, look at the big whale eye there. His eyes can withstand the pressure changes and still see. Which, whenever I've gone snorkeling and I put that mask on and I dive down for just 10 feet, I feel like the mask is about to crush my whole face. It's like it's squishing in. That's just the pressure of 10 feet. Imagine being more than a mile down and their eyeballs are able to handle that kind of pressure. And going back to their lung power and stuff there and their heart, I remember hearing that the way their blood vessels and the capillaries are all made is made to be able to do the pressure change and temperature change. You have to remember when a whale is going down, especially think of blue whale, going down, the pressure at its nose is completely different than the pressure at its tail. And so the blood and capillaries are designed so to equalize in the pressure from that end of its body to this end of the body. And if it didn't have it, it wouldn't make it. Then we have we'll get back to our little elephant idea. These guys came with nostrils on the top. Imagine that. Just like ready to go. They could breathe totally on top of the water. So absolutely a necessity. gotta have this. That's why you see, the porpoises and everything got the little blowhole going on there. That's the way they breathe. They have to have it up there. There's no like, let's see how long I can let my snout, do this, whatever. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Everything had to come exactly that way in order for a whale to be a whale. That's the way of it. There's no way around it. Now let's talk about the air creatures, the birds. Genesis 1:21b, it says, and every winged bird according to its kind of God saw it good. Now we think about the design of birds. So, let's see, we got the skeletal system. I just want to stick with just that picture there for a moment. Because this picture, I wish I'd put it on here, but everybody's familiar with the Archipteryx, the fossil of the bird. It almost looks like that, where the bird's all crunched up like that, and then you see the feathers and everything else. Everyone's like, oh look, it's making its way to become a bird. The problem is with Archipteryx is a bird. It's not a dinosaur becoming a bird. It is a bird. Everything about it, its pelvis, its everything that you would need to be skeletal-wise as a bird is all there. That's the whole idea. It's a bird. They don't know what kind of turkey bird it was or whatever, but it was totally a bird. And so that's the thing. With a bird, the bone structure was interesting. Now the bone structure is different than our bone structure. Imagine that. It's got to be light enough to be able to fly. These are part of the design when you think of like aircraft. They use some of this design in the aircraft. Let's make structures and make it so the bird has large air pockets in its bone. Just how it handles everything and how it can be light enough to fly and be able to be flexible enough, different to the bone. So that's huge. And it all had to come that way right out the gate. Otherwise, guess what? You got a dodo bird. It ain't going to get nowhere. Then we have the lung system, the bird lungs. It's like, this is kind of interesting to learn about. The birds have lungs and air sacs. And the air sacs are not sites of gas exchange, so it's like air storage. So it's like because they need so much air all the time to do what they're doing, they have to have air in, and it's like, what's interesting is it's a one-way flow of air for its lungs. It's one-way flow. And so it's like getting air in, but it doesn't just go to its lungs, it goes to its air sacs to be able to use to give its body the energy it needs, the oxygen it needs to be able to process everything. And that has to be, and that's common for every bird. Every bird has that. And so that's the way they're designed to be able to do their flying, to be able to do just that. Amazing. And then we come to, of course, we get feathers. Feathers come in all sorts of different feathers. You got your wing feathers, down feathers, made for pillows. Sweet. You got your tail feathers, contour, semi-plume, bristle, bioplume. But all these feathers, when you think of a bird feather, you're just like, I think probably a great example is that many of you guys have probably seen some of the Marvel movies, and of course one of the heroes of the Marvel movies was Iron Man, and it was fun to watch throughout the movies how his suit would evolve. What was interesting is on his suit, they would show all these little fins and everything moving out. They did that because they know what birds need. Every feather on a bird to fly, every feather is there for a purpose. To get its job done, to do all its maneuvers, to move up and down, all those feathers have to be in the right spot. You can't have wing feathers on the tail, it's just they do different things. You see how the wing feathers almost has that airfoil design that we see on the aircraft. And it just, all of these things have to be perfectly designed for the bird to fly. You can't just be, that's why it's so silly when you see all these dinosaur things, the dino movies, and you see the dinosaurs have just the feathers for no real purpose other than they have a feather. It just doesn't work that way. The feathers all have to be there. And this is an interesting fact. When they have done, when you think of the geological stuff, they found birds among where the dinosaurs, regular birds. So it's just like, guess what? They were all around at the same time. So So it wasn't like they had to become birds. So it's just like, and again, you have to have all these different feathers to do purpose. God didn't really think about these feathers. This is the next one. The feathers themselves, so interesting. I think about 10 years ago we had a guy come through and do a presentation about it. And he talked about the feathers, everything that needs to be there. The quilt. I remember when I was a kid, you'd find a feather. I don't know about you guys. You'd take a feather and it'd be all smooth, and you'd like check it out, and you could like peel it apart. And you couldn't put it back together though. You tried and you'd like put it back together, but it just wouldn't. It would, like a little feather would be peeled apart. But it's got all these barbs and everything to hold it together, and hooks on there that are just perfectly made. It's made to be flexible, which is just amazing. That's something for aircraft. It took them a while to realize that they had to be flexible. The F-14 is one. Everybody thinks about the F-14 and how it flies. They realized that they had to put certain fiberglass panels on the F-14 because of the way that the wings flex, especially the tail section or the rudder section on the bottom. They had to put flexible fiberglass up there because the metal would just break. So the forces, the G forces that they're putting on it. Birds already had that going on. It was flexible already. They had the barbs there to hold those feathers together. Very interesting. They have to. Otherwise, guess what? Like me flapping my hands. If I flap like this, you can feel air going through. But the moment I cup my hand, I can feel that it's catching the air a lot better, so that it has to hold those feathers together. Preening is something else. When I first heard about this, I was amazed. So when you see the bird, they're picking through the feathers and all that, they're not just finding bugs. There's like a gland back here in their back. They'll reach back there, rub their beak on that, and then go through their feathers. And they're like oiling their feathers to take care of them and to keep them, clean and everything else so that they can fly. And if they don't do that, if they didn't have that in place already, it wouldn't happen. Their feathers would just be useless. It's amazing. Everything had to be there, all in one piece, if you will, in order for a bird to be a bird. So it's just amazing to think about that. And the requirements. Now with this in mind, so the birds and that, and just think about that, God goes on and then he starts to talk about some instructions for them. He actually gives them instructions, if you will. And this section I was going to talk about the requirements of life. Genesis 1:22 says, and God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth, fill the waters in the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth. So pretty much he says, hey guys, got it going on? Male, female, time to get busy. And that's pretty much what he's saying. Is be fruitful, multiply, and fill. To be fruitful is like they were to reproduce. That's what it's saying. Reproduce, multiply, not just a little, but a lot. Get out there and do it a lot, and fill. And then meaning that have it all. It's all for them. So that's to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. So with that in mind, we ponder the miracle of life. I've mentioned this before, that life would even begin to exist. We should consider the work of God, that how life can continue to exist. See, that's the whole thing. Like they talked about the Miller experiment so long ago, where the guy put in his laboratory, got all his chemicals together, and he zapped it, and he's like, look, I made a little protein there. Woohoo, protein, we solved everything. That solved evolution and everything, but it didn't. That's a big problem. And most scientists now, they're like shy away from that whole thing because it didn't do them any good. Because so much, the moment what he zapped and it came about, immediately went away because of what was there. That didn't really help us show how life really got there anywhere. But when we think of that miracle, the possibility how life would get there, we have to think about what life requires. Now this list, full disclosure, this list I got from a great website called Creation Studies Institute by Tom DeRosa. And so I've added some of my own thoughts to it, but the list itself is pretty straightforward. Life requires certain things. Life requires organization. Life requires metabolism. Life requires regulation. repair and growth, and reproduction. All those things are what life requires. First, we're going to talk about organization. Life requires organization. So we got probably the most amazing thing that we discovered was organized was the cell. Oh, there we go. There we go. So here's the cell. This cell is just a cell. When we just think of this is on the microscopic level, not even thinking about everything else of our body that's organized. This cell, they finally, when they got the electron microscope in the 1930s, allowed them to see what was in there. Because everybody thought, oh, it's a little blob of something. That's nothing that special. So they got a real good look at it, and they're like, man, this thing's like a little miniature city. Got your nucleus right there, which is like your town hall running the show. And got ribosomes, look over there, the little dots, and they're like the factories that help produce stuff. And then mitochondria, there's those little red little things that they produce. They're the power plants. And they have all sorts of other stuff going on there. They discovered like RNA. That was, everybody always thought that with DNA there was RNA, and they always just thought RNA was just the junk stuff. But the RNA actually goes in there and talks to everybody. It's like the messenger system. Saying, hey, this is what you got to do. You got to do this. Oh, stop doing that. And that's what it does. So there's no such thing as junk RNA. Everything there is on purpose. And so it has to be organized in order to make something happen. It can't just be willy-nilly. It's not chaos in the cells. Otherwise, we would all just, fall apart. No, it's all order. But then, so you got your organization, but now you need metabolism. Got to be able to do something. Metabolism. There we go. We all know we need energy, and food for energy. However, you got those enzymes in there. The enzymes need to know and take the cell components, would have no way of converting food to molecules and molecules to energy. Have you thought about that? Here's the Mr. Hamburger. We feel hungry, we want to go eat the hamburger. But the body's got to be able to take that hamburger. It's got to have all the systems in place to be able to take Mr. Hamburger and make it into molecules that then go to give us the energy to do what we do. All those systems have to be in place. All the different enzymes have to be ready to rock and roll to do that. Your stomach acid, everything up and down, whatever is alive has to have a way to take food and process it. It's got to have it in order to live. Amazing. Regulation. Now this one is interesting too. Regulation. Got to remember regulation. Ever thought about that? Have you thought about when you drink a glass of really cold water? If your body wasn't regulated, you drink a really cold water and your body might respond differently. It might respond and sit there and say, cold water, heat it up really much, and then just go overboard. You're like, you drink cold water and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, sweating to death. Or it doesn't know how to deal with cold water, and you immediately start to freeze. But it doesn't do that. Your body regulates all these things. And look, this is just our body, the different things. We got the temperature regulation, the hypothalamus up there. It tells us what to be. Don't even know what osmotic pressure is. But kidneys help maintain our water balance. Blood distributes heat throughout the body. Again, just goes in changing up everything, doing heat. We got evaporation. Imagine if we didn't have the evaporation for the water, just like to be able to get the water out of us. Just amazing little system there. The pancreas regulates blood sugar. So, you eat your candy bar, and like, what's it going to do with it? The pancreas says, oh, take this and do that. The skeletal muscle contracts and releases heat. That's an interesting part of the system. It's all there to regulate everything. It's got to happen. If it doesn't happen, we're out of control. The factory isn't working. And you go kaplunk and you're dead. Just like that, because you got to have all these things working. And the fancy term for that is homeostasis. Homeostasis. And it's a big principle for that. And without it, everything's out of whack. Then we come to this: repair and grow. Got our immune system. Ever thought about that? Many, of course, the last 2 years, everybody's been thinking about their immune system. And for some, even more so for immune system, how it works. Then we can't even have one. It's amazing. Notice that Mr. Appendix is over there on the left. lot of people are like, appendix, what's that for? It's actually part of our immune system. It helps produce different stuff to deal with that. Amazing. The bone marrow helps to deal with our immune system. The spleen, the thymus, all the tonsils. Mr. Like, the tonsils, they're useless too. No, no, no. They have all part of our immune system. It has some little part of it. It's all there. It's just amazing when you think of blood, how blood works. The blood coagulates. The body, imagine, we think about it like a scab. If you cut yourself, you can get a scab on there. That's amazing that the body knows how to repair itself.
Yeah.
Thought about that? That's a big problem. Like they talked about the European royalty one time where they had a congenital condition that if they got cut, they wouldn't stop bleeding. They would stop clotting. They would just bleed out. And that's amazing. That the blood would actually do that. And the way the blood is shaped, it's got that little donut shape. That shape is the perfect shape to do what it's got to do. To be able to move around, to clot, or to not clot when it shouldn't. Imagine that. You know, just like if we just had our blood just constantly had to clot, we wouldn't live. It's amazing. And then, of course, we also, to have life, you got to be able to reproduce. Had to debate about which pictures I was going to show on this one. Well, we got the cells, the normal cells of reproduction there, the sperm cell and the egg cell, and there it goes to work, and it splits it, and then growth starts happening. That's just amazing in its own right, that it would even do that. That's just crazy, but it has to do that. That's the other thing. It's just like, one thing is like, imagine the scientists. They're like in their lab. We're in our laboratory. And I am making a cell. Look at me. I have made an amoeba. Check it out. Everybody says, oh, let's go check out your amoeba. Oh, it's been 30 seconds. Your amoeba's dead. That's sad. You missed something on this amoeba. What did I miss? You made an amoeba that couldn't make another amoeba. That's a bummer. But that's the whole thing. So that's where we got a two-part. We also have, the other picture just shows the amazing part of the cell that just splits. Doesn't take something else to make it split, but God made them so that they would just be able to split and be able to retain all the information. And there's lots of information there that we've talked about that before, but it's able to do that. In life, we have two different other parts of it, and it's amazing that our cells, our cells are reproducing all the time. That's right. When we're vacuuming up ourselves. We don't want to think about that, but we are shedding. We just don't see it, and we're vacuuming up. Even brain cells, do reproduce. For myself, I think I produce a little bit slower than others. But the whole idea, our brain cells are reproducing all the time. Well, when we think about this, we're going to talk a little bit more about, Genesis seems to talk about all these people that lived 900 and some odd years. We're like, well, how could they do that? Then how could all of a sudden after the flood, God says, no more. Now you're going to be only living to 120 years. That's interesting. Why would it do that? Because if you think of it, if you just had enough food, you would just be able to keep going. Your cells would have the information, they would be able just to keep going. As long as you had enough food to do so, to feed the cells, keep them alive and keep going. Because they've been made to do that. They talk about, alligators and stuff like that. It's amazing how big of them some of them are. If you have a cage big enough and everything, it'll just be super huge. Because it'll just keep going, keep growing. Amazing. So that's the pattern of life. There's evening, Genesis 1:23, there's evening, there's morning, and the fifth day. That's what God did, make birds and fish. Now when I was thinking about this idea of the requirements for life, we're about to do communion and we're going to celebrate what Jesus has done. But I realized that those requirements for life is not just our life, but really, in Christian life, those are the same things that we need to live. We need organization. God has put us all together. God holds us together. God holds us together through organization. It's part of the body of Christ. We call it a church. People gathered together as part of that organization, if you will. Where we also, organization is part of our discipline, where we pray, we read God's word, and we walk together. That's all part of that. Metabolism. That's really the kind of idea. It's like the Holy Spirit working in our lives, giving us the impetus, the inspiration to keep going, the personal touch to us, if you will. Regulation. I thought about that. Regulation, because you get some lopsided spiritual emphasis sometimes. So we can't just have, it's like you get some folks that's like, oh, this is what I'm only interested in. I'm only interested in end time stuff. Well, that's nice and all, but then if you neglect the rest of the part of your Christian walk, you're missing out on a lot of essential information. So people can get lopsided, and so you got to have regulation, repair and grow. See, this is a great thing, the repair. Well, what is that about? Well, spiritual healing that God does. God's continual forgiveness brings repair to our hearts. And we need that repair all the time. How you guys all sinless yet? No. So that means we constantly need repair. And then, of course, reproduction. And that's where we, some way, somehow, find ways to share what Jesus has done. And we're all gifted in different ways of how to do that. And giving our gifts back and sharing. And that's Christian reproduction. It's just interesting to think about that. There's life essentials. So even the same for that. Because if you miss out on some of those things, you're got a crippled walk. You're like, why am I just limping along in my Christian walk? Well, let's take a look at what the requirements of life that's going on. You hitting all the bases? Are you hitting all those things? Do you understand those things? Usually that's usually the case. That's why you're limping along. Let's pray, and we'll invite the worship team up. Let's celebrate what Jesus did just to give us life in the first place. Father God, we just pray now. We prepare our hearts to celebrate your work, what you've done. I just thank you so much that you've given us eternal life. Lord, I admit that I'm still trying to understand all the depths of what life in you means. I just thank you, though, Lord, that you sent your Son to die for our sins, that we might be able to enjoy life in you. So, Lord, I just pray now that as we prepare our hearts and thoughts in this moment, Lord, that you would just meet us here as we get ready to celebrate what you've done. Amen.
The nails in your hands is yours. Forever my love, forever my heart, forever my life is yours.
Lord Jesus, we just thank you for life. We thank you that you went to the cross to pay the price that we could not pay. I thank you that you left us a ceremony, if you will, of remembrance. And Lord, we want to remember that now. Just as that night you passed around the Passover bread and said, this is my body, broken for you. Take and eat. And he took the wine and the cup. So this is my blood poured out for you. Lord Jesus, I just thank you that you did pour out your blood to cover us and cleanse us from our sins. Thank you so much. Let's drink in remembrance of Jesus. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
You want to